we can click it and see what's happening inside. This is our management dashboard. Within our dashboard here, we have master credentials, which we needed to SSH in. Monitoring, which managed services is great for seeing what's currently running and managing it. Settings and packages is very, very important, especially if you want to mess with any of the upload size limits or memory limits. What we want to do is click Applications and click Cloudways Demo, which is our application. As you can see, there is an application URL that's just like a temporary subdomain on .cloudwaysapps.com domain. And this is our Laravel application. What we want to do now is actually get it to deploy. So we're going to deploy via Git. So we can click Deployment via Git, and I'll go through all these options after. Let's generate an SSH key, view SSH key, and click it to copy. Let's now go into our repository, click Settings, go to Deploy Keys, add deploy key. You can paste this in here and call this Cloudways deploy key. And we're going to leave allow write access checked off because there is really no scenario I could think of where Cloudways should be actually writing to this repository. So that's just a security thing. All right, I should get an email, which I just did. I see it on my phone, that this key has been added. So now we no longer need our repository actually. We could just click out here. Oh, we actually do need to get the remote address. So we need to copy this. And for now, we are done with the repository. Click Authenticate. It's going to use that SSH key to authenticate that that connection should actually exist. Then we get to choose our branch we could deploy from. In our case, master is the only branch we have, so that's fine. And we could click Start Deployment. Now this is going to pull all the files down from the repository, and we're going to have to run composer install from the SSH access. That's going to reinstall the application, make sure everything works, and we should be able to immediately see the changes in the deployed version here. So let's go ahead and do that because it looks like it just finished up. We're going to use these credentials to basically log in, which we can do through SSH. And on a Mac, it's just SSH username at server IP. If you're on Windows, you're probably going to have to use something like PuTTY, which I'm not too familiar with, but I can't imagine it being too difficult to get to work. And as you can see, we're SSH'd in now. So if I cd into applications, which is just like the root directory, and ls, you can see that we have one application folder or directory. Cloudways actually uses random directory naming for applications, but we can actually override this within our application management dashboard. I typically tend to leave this because I think it's a security thing. That's why they do this, but we can just cd into that, and ls, we can see that we have public HTML, and cd into that, ls, we can see we have a Laravel project. If I run php artisan -- version, we can see it's a 6.3 version project, which is exactly what we chose. So if I clear this and run composer install, now keep in mind I ran php artisan -- version and it was 6.3. So now if I run that command, it should show 8 point something. Let's see that that's actually the case. 8.20.1, perfect. If I reload here, we should see deployed on Cloudways. Amazing. So does this mean our application is completely functional? No, because if we load up the user's route, it's going to break. And the reason it's breaking is because our env file doesn't actually have the credentials set up for the database. Now, really easy to fix this, just vim.env. You can see our environment file here, and we need to just replace these values. Within our application management dashboard, we click Access Details and just copy these. Of course, it's very much recommended to change these because the username and the database name are the exact same, but just for the purpose of this demo, we could use the default credentials. We can write and quit. And now if we reload the page, it should break again actually, because we haven't actually migrated anything. So let's run migrations. php artisan migrate. All right, so migrations worked. And now we see that it is returning JSON, but it's empty because there's obviously no users. So php artisan db seed, and this will seed the database. And look at that, we have 10 users, exactly what we're looking for. If we ran that again, we should see 20, which we do. Perfect. So that's the basic setup of a Laravel application on Cloudways. But let's just run through a couple more things before ending this video. One interesting thing we have here is domain management, and we can actually set up a domain. They provide details here for how to do this actually, which is cool. The way we do this is you need to log into your domain registrar and just create an A record. So I use Namecheap, and they link to an article specifically for Namecheap. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and hopefully I can show you how to set it up within the Cloudways dashboard. Okay, so I've gone ahead and created an A record within Namecheap, and I've basically created it for the Cloudways-demo subdomain and pointed it to the public IP of the server. Let's just copy this and then go in here, go into domain management and just enter that primary domain. And this is for the dgrzyb.me domain, which is one of my personal domains. Save the changes. And once this updates, we should be able to use it. Sometimes if the DNS settings are not correct, it will not actually let you do this. But because my domain has already propagated, it should work, and it has, seems to at least. So now we can copy this, put it in the browser, and there it is. It works. So that's how easy it is. We can also go to /users, and it does work. So one other thing I find really cool is we could actually use the SSL management section to create a Let's Encrypt certificate. So I'm just going to use my email here and put in my domain there and click install certificate. Once it installs, it's going to ask if I want to just default to HTTPS, which I will do. All right, looks like it's installed. So now it's asking, like I said, if I want to enable HTTPS redirection for all traffic, and I absolutely do. So it's going to do that for me. And now that that's complete, we should be able to go back here, reload, and it should default to an HTTPS encrypted connection. And it has. And that's how easy that is to do. And the last thing I want to show you is the database manager, which is really, really handy. So once it loads up, it's not like PHPMyAdmin. It's pretty close though. So you get to choose your tables here. You can see the data. And this is the data I just seeded into the database, so it's all fake. And you can even run SQL commands like you'd expect in any kind of database manager. So as a whole, Cloudways is really cool. I think it's worth paying for. It makes things pretty easy. And I do enjoy using it. I'll probably stick with it. I've created a project here. It's got two routes. One that is just the root route. It'll say deployed on Cloudways, and then another users route, which will get all users from the database. And those database users are seeded here inside the database seeder, which we're going to run on the actual application. And I wanted to show you that the database stuff actually works because it's obviously very important, and I'll show you how to set that up. This is probably the easiest way for me to show you that it does actually work. So that's the project. If we look at it locally, you can see it says deployed on Cloudways, and going to /users gets us the JSON for the users, which is perfect. I've also pushed this up to a repository, which you're going to have to do because we're going to be deploying from a GitHub repository. And basically, you can see here that it's just a regular repository. We're going to be adding a deploy key, and we're going to be pulling this project from here just to prove to you that it is the one that I just showed you inside the web.php file. You see our routes here.